Thank you for joining us today, June 18th, on this beautiful day of Juneteenth celebration and festivities over the weekend. Well, we want to kick it off right here at the Black Child Legacy Campaign and the Sarah Health Foundation and the Center with our report around transformative justice community, a countywide evaluation of the Black Child Legacy Campaign. And our goal really here today is to bring this report to life, both in the stories and the portraitures that you're going to learn about, but also to really understand the methodology and the research that we're going to continue to push, not only here locally, but want to be able to push regionally, statewide, and nationally. I am Kendra Montgomery Block. I am the Associate Director of Community and Economic Development here at the Sarah Health Foundation and the Center. And I'm joined with both colleagues and partners in this work, social justice research advocates that I really am truly proud to call family, colleagues, and friends. Before we get started, I want to make sure that we say welcome. We really are going to talk about not only the work of the Black Child Legacy Campaign and the leadership of the Sarah Health Foundation, but the Transformative Justice and Education Center, who led the report, also the work of our own Dr. Vajra at Sacramento State, and of course, the leadership of Sacramento County and Supervisor Phil Serna. We're going to go through an agenda, introductions. We're going to have an opening by Pastor Vajra Banks, youth poets, featured speakers, research and recommendations, and again, some QA. Before we get started though, we want to be able to give this particular presentation over to Pastor Vajra Banks, who leads our faith-based member seat on the Reduction of African American Child Death Steering Committee. But she's just an all-around mother of our community, and we want to make sure that she gets to open this up with love and light so that we can make sure we're on the right path when we think about the You're on mute,
Ready
Pastor.
for me?
Good. Yes, very much so.
Okay, praise God this morning. I'm excited to be here this morning, and God has truly blessed us. And as I was talking last week about the quote that we had read and all of that, I decided that would be one thing we could do this morning. I could start with this quote straight out of the Bible from Ecclesiastes, if that's all right. That quote is, "Two are better than one because they have good returns for their works. If one fall down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to pick him up." Praise God. I thank for the opportunity this morning to open this great session. One of the soft spots in my heart has always been children and the community. And so as I began to pray this morning, I would ask that each of us focus on why do we do what we do for others. If we can just focus on that and get into our own spirit and wonder, why do I care? I care so much, until I wonder, why do I care so much? But I'm going to offer prayer this morning. I ask that you just focus in on yourself and find out, Lord, why did you put me in this position? Praise God. Let us pray. Father God, thank you for this day, a day that we have never seen and we will never see it again. We have come to thank you for the history and the present accomplishment you have allowed to fall upon us as a people. We realize, God, that Juneteenth did not end our struggle or finish our suffering as descendants of slaves. But we thank you for what the Juneteenth has done. It has given us strength to continue to believe in that nothing is impossible for us to accomplish with your guidance. And we have come to give you thanks. As we celebrate freedom today, Juneteenth, we continue to look for what it means to be free. Free of poverty, free of homelessness, free of hatred, free from injustice of war, and even more. All of these problems will continue. So we need direction and we need guidance from you, Lord. Lord, continue to look down upon our leaders of Black Child Legacy who see the problems, but who also need time and energy to move this community to action. This legacy report will not show you the blood, the sweat, and the tears that were shed. It will show you only the results. Lord, you have given us leaders who have led us to reach out to other organizations, to form partnerships, to collaborate with other professionals in our community, and bringing us all together for the common good. We give you thanks, oh God. Thank you for the knowledge and the love that has been shown as we move to another desired need in our community. We will get there, oh God. We find joy today. We find joy today because Black Child Legacy has found a way to climb the ladder by faith, knowing that all things are possible when we trust in you. Thank you, oh God, for this day, and thank you, oh God, for the days to come. In the mighty, mighty, mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Banks. What a way to open up, in one of my traditional faith-based approaches, but I want to make sure that our team opens it up to any other type of opening, spiritual or faith-based connections. A lot of this work is heart work, and it takes that level of spiritual connection and conviction to continue to, keep that North Star of preventable African-American child deaths. And we've been really, really, really fortunate, quite blessed, honestly, to have Pastor Barbara Banks all along the way to make sure that we have favor and that we are consistently meeting the mark around measurable impact for children, youth, and their families in Sacramento. So I want to thank you, Pastor Banks, for that wonderful opening. Next, I want to go to our youth poets. It's always, probably the highlight of my day, where we can continue to make sure that young people's voices are at the forefront of what we're doing and that we're listening to their heart, to their minds, to their solutions as we think about ways to take on social justice. So Nesma, I want to make sure that you have opportunity to introduce yourself, your grade, your age, and anything our team should know about you before you do your poems.
Yeah, my name is Nesma Waliali. I go to Indercombe High School. I just finished 11th grade, so I'm going into 12th grade. But yeah, I checked off the list. And yeah, I'm very passionate about community service and especially youth empowerment in community service. And I think that it's really important that youth voice and youth choice is amplified, especially in the Sacramento region. Yeah, that's just a quick rundown.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. In the middle of a quiet, undisturbed stage, the scenes of our history play out. Acts of violence, war, innovation, and greed, and in the middle, a sprout of hope, of resilience, a reason for believing in better times ahead. It grows like a silent snake on the ground of our stage and around the scenes of the dialogue we like to play. The sprout of hope takes root, wrapping like vines up our legs and stretching, growing up our spines. This weed we call hope, whichever grows, is the setting, tone, and occasion of our play. As we, each actor, take up our consequential role in history, all the while this tiny seed remains a mystery. Despite best attempts to weed out, unroot, and exterminate, it endures. In darkness, pain, and drought, our little seed of hope remains. In the middle of a quiet, undisturbed stage, the scenes of our history play out. Acts of violence, war, innovation, and greed, and in the middle, a sprout.
Thank you. Now, did you have another poem or can we pass it to Adia?
Either works for me. I have another one if you guys want to hear that one, or I can go after Adia. She can go first.
let's go. Let's hear your other poem and then we'll go to Adia.
Okay, this next one is called My Blood. Ever cemented in the lines of history will be my blood. From ages ago when lands went by different names and rivers took different paths, my people stood. From an unbroken chain of men and women, I emerge. My nails the reflection of their tattered hands, my eyes a window into their many stories, and with them I stand. Where I go, their stories move too, even should I not know them. Their blood courses through my veins, as my blood will through those of my children and grandchildren, and ever on. After I am brought back to dust, I stand as myself, but also as many before me, as the dream of a man centuries ago, as the hope of a woman histories away, and yet with them I stand. In me they live and continue to live in ages they thought they'd never see, because I am them, my ever unbroken line of ancestry, and they are me. Thank you.
Just beautiful, just beautiful. Thank you for helping us open it up. Poetry, prayer, a lot of things to bring out that love and light and healing. And your voice is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Adia Abolu, you're up next. Now, are you in 11th grade?
Yeah, hi, my name is Adia Bull. I'm an incoming junior at Indercombe High School, and I am 15 years old. I'm a proud member of my school's BSU. I am the chief of apprentices for my college and career readiness team, and I'm a proud poet. I think poetry is very important because it can inspire others and just help spread love and spread knowledge in a beautiful way. So I'll just go in and get right into my poem. So this poem is called Forest Fire. Where is my fire? I wanted to catch and then inspire. Where is my fire? Lost hope, but with that, how do we cope? Where is my fire? Is it hiding inside me and I've yet to ignite it? Where is my fire? Because it was just us against the world. Most haven't even touched their motherland soil. I often toil with the world, with our progression and oppression. I toil if integration was really ever the way. How do I right now make change and emancipate myself from mental slavery? But for some, it's all they've ever known as we cast a vote for hope. But how do I imagine horizons worth climbing for, or money worth buying for? Do we really think the revolution is worth dying for? I'm sick of these denying sources. White supremacist courses on some don't bring up the corpses. America is living on borrowed time. Never indicted for their crimes as we climb the very tree they hung Black folks off of. Then gaslight the Black community's intergenerational trauma. Would they know what to do? Martin, Malcolm, would they know how to fight for truth? Selassie, Asada, would they know how to uplift the youth? But it's our turn to find a new tree and tend the soil, branch off roots and inspire. Keep our eye on the goal, global love is what we seek to acquire. Wait the fire next time, we the fire right now. Can we use it for justice and not burn the whole forest down? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adia. Again, your voice touching. I'm so proud of you. But thank you so much. And that is said, Sacramento Area Youth Speaks, near and dear to my heart, youth poetry at its best, social justice, youth activism, combined to make sure that our neighborhoods have voice. And I just love it. Thank you so much, both to all of you and our opening. Just in case you think you might not be in the right spot, but you are. This is the webinar on transformative justice and the impact and evaluation of the Black Child Legacy Campaign. And we can go ahead and get started. I want to introduce to you all Mr. Chet P. Hewitt. He is the president and CEO at the Sierra Health Foundation. I call him the big boss, and also just my near and dear mentor to this work. And many folks know that Chet came and made sure that I would have leadership when it comes to the Black Child Legacy Campaign. And I could not continue to thank him enough just for the opportunity, the wisdom, the guidance, but also showing the whole world, and definitely Sacramento, that we can save Black kids, and we can put Black leadership and our multiple levels of community leadership to the test. and when we think about a goal and how do we get there. So Chet, you are opening us up, but before we do that, it's very important. One of the quotes inside of this report, if you haven't already downloaded it, it's by Miss Jackie Rose, and she says, you know, what does freedom look like? What does freedom sound like? And she says, it sounds like a Marvin Gaye song. So I want to make sure that as we continue to go into this, that we really take on and embody that. So Chet, you're up.
Well, I'm glad I was on mute because I started singing, and I'm not a singer, but it brings back, you know, great memories and history about our struggle across many generations. Let me just say welcome to this Black Child Legacy celebration, because that is exactly what it is. And I want to start by thanking Pastor Banks and our two youth poets who brought into the room words of power, of resilience, and hopefulness offered up in two classic traditions of Black culture, you know, poetry and prayer. And you know that we have existed on such for generations. It's almost like food for our souls in many respects. They sustained us when the material things in life were few and far in between, because they called up in us something more powerful than what the material things in the world provide for us. And I start like that because in many respects, that's what BCLC is about. I actually love the report, and I really implore all of you to read it. Dr. Torry Winn, my good friend, Dr. Vajra Watson, I met many years ago, have done a marvelous job looking and speaking beyond the numbers. Yes, evaluation should be about hard data. The 30% reduction in African-American child death between 2014 and 2018. It's in the report. Read it, see it, celebrate it. But also read into this and take from this report all the things that go along with it that are also very powerful, also very important, and also very inspiring. The stories of change, the realization and the reconciliation of past harm and trauma, all offered up in a way that says the path we are on is the right one and holds out great hope, real value for a more prosperous future. That's what this report is about. That's what it captures so beautifully and elegantly. And I know that the great minds behind its creation, which are more than the authors who gathered the words, because they are expressions of the folks who were interviewed, and they are the expressions and hopes and sentiments of those who will participate who may not have been formally interviewed for the report as well. I can tell you my love and appreciation for this project is an amalgamation of all the people I've been engaged with who talk about this work, who find hope and potential and possibility in this work, who struggle hard every day to recognize and overcome the challenges to being successful in this work. I think as we move close to celebrating Juneteenth, historical day of Black freedom and liberation, this is a powerful time to release such a report, because it is about restoring and recognizing the power held by communities. It was always there. It was always there. And great systems unleash that power, are not afraid of it. Tap into that power for good. Don't try to suppress it, right? Invest in the people and places that hold that power as a strategy for achieving success. And don't run from the challenges that it presents, because doing so doesn't result in a more prosperous future. It is just simply trying to revise history. And they say you can't drive forward if all you're doing is looking in the rearview mirror. BCLC really is about the future. I want to end before I introduce my colleague in progress here, to say that the best days of BCLC are yet to come. I believe that. Happy for all the organizations, the county, our CIL partners, Ms. Jackie and Danielle, and Cassandra Jennings, and on, all the folks who have been, major players and contributors to this work, Greg King and folks, I'm not gonna name everybody because I'll forget some, but pardon me, but you know who you are, I love you, I appreciate you and just wanna hold you up as being, champions of this particular work. I also wanna say that, a great life affords you an opportunity to be in partnership with people to do extraordinary things. Now, I believe no one does anything great alone. And I, for one, am very proud of being able to have been a part of this work. And I really hope you are too. And in the spirit of the great Maya Angelou, who says, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. I think about going forward and into the future, doing even better than we have done in the past. I want to thank the folks at First Five for their contribution to this work, at the school districts for their contribution. And of course, our crisis intervention workers, our community health workers, who all engage families in ways that help them move beyond whatever challenges they're facing in extraordinary ways. The key to BCLC isn't its funding, isn't its strategy. It's in its people and their ability to love their communities, their families, and their children. That is the secret sauce. Social scientists may look for lots of things, but at the end of the day, it comes down to love and healing, and not judging people for the places they find themselves, but having more grace for their condition and a commitment to helping them change it. And with that, let me turn it over to my partner. There's a phrase that says partner and often a negative activity. I reject all that because I look for partners in progress. I want people who are carrying us forward. And I have the great pleasure of introducing Supervisor Phil Serna, known to me as Phil, because I like to think we have that relationship, whose extraordinary leadership and commitment to this work gave it space to begin. And after convening a Blue Ribbon Commission, which he was committed to not simply talking about why Black children were dying at 2 or 3 times the rate of their peers, but to do something about it. And I can say that from those early conversations, 7 years ago, Bill's BCLC was birthed. And Phil, I just want to say thank you for your incredible leadership. I know you always distribute it, but sometimes it takes someone to step forward in the right place to do something extraordinary. And taking the risk on this work was in fact that. It is now being replicated in places across the country because people know that what we've tapped into here in Sacramento is powerful, compelling, and actually makes the difference in the lives of individuals. And I would say this, and I say this often, there is nothing more powerful, more rewarding, or more important to be able to be someone who assists someone who's experiencing a challenging period to change the trajectory of their particular life. You can build apps and phones and technology, do all the things you want to. But at the end of the day, it's your ability to help someone who's in need that really defines who you really are as a human. Bill, thank you for your help and support in this, and I turn this screen over to you.
Well, thank you, Chet. And let me first start by thanking our young people that inspired us this morning with some beautiful words and gave us a lot to think about. I think that's what this convening is really intended to do, is to inspire us, not just to see the report, understand the report, but to celebrate it, as I think you mentioned, Chet, the fact that it represents a tremendous amount of great work here in the community. I want to thank Kendra for her leadership. I think you and I can both agree, Chet, that without Kendra making this initiative her every waking moment in terms of not just a project, but I think something that is obviously something very integral to who she is, means a great deal. And so without Kendra at the reins of this effort, I'm not so sure it would be the success that it is. I want to thank Pastor Banks for her wonderful words of prayer at the opening of today's convening. She's one of my mentors, one of my community heroes, and someone that despite whatever religion we might be, I think always finds the right way to again, inspire us in faith. And finally, Chet, I got to really give a tremendous amount of credit to you. And you are probably the most important mentor I've had in my 11 years now on the Board of Supervisors. You and I kind of came to the positions that we have about the same time. And I don't think that I'd be able to join you today and celebrate this great work if it were not for you to kick me in the rear on occasion and make sure that this is not going to be some transient effort, that this is going to have permanence, this is going to be sustainable. And so I want to thank you wholeheartedly for that, and for being just a tremendous friend as well. So I know that Kendra wants us to be kind of an organic conversation, discussion today, but I just wanted to share a few words about the Black Child Legacy campaign, the work that is captured in the Transformative Justice Community Report. And I think you said it well in terms of this being a report that is not so much about the numbers. And I think, many of us are very familiar with the fact that we have marked success by those numbers. And in fact, we held ourselves accountable with those numbers to make sure that we reduce disparities and actual deaths 10 to 20% by 2020. In fact, we went past that. But this report is really, I think, inspiring in so many ways because it elaborates on the people behind it, behind that success, and behind the very personal effect that this campaign has had on us and for the community. And so I'm very humbled to be part of this. And as I say often, I really did one thing. And I asked the question. I asked the question at the right time. As a junior member of the board back in 2011, just months into my tenure on the Board of Supervisors, I simply responded not as I don't think as a politician, but just simply as a Sacramentan, as a member of the community, when I found out that the disparity in African American child deaths was as pronounced as it is, and that it had been captured in data over the course of not just a few years, but 2 decades, and asked the question, well, what have we, meaning we the board, but also we the community, done to address it? And it was the most deafening silence I've heard. And that was really troubling to me. The fact that no one could give me a good answer. There were no staff at the county that could give me a good answer. My colleagues couldn't give me a good answer. We did a great job of identifying what the challenge is, and the fact that this challenge was what it is, but no one even had any anecdotes about an attempt to try and reverse this terrible trend of African American children dying at the rates they have been. And so I simply asked that question: what has been done? And from that, I simply kind of tipped the first domino. That's the way I look at this. And it really has been the work not of a single politician or a single supervisorial office. It has been the work of the community and the organizational structure of the Sierra Health Foundation's center. And again, with the great leadership of Kendra and others that have done all the heavy lifting. Some of the young people that spoke earlier through their poetry used analogies referencing the growth of a weed that really struck me, because I kind of feel like all I did was stick my finger in the soil and plant a seed, and the community came around that seed, watered it, nurtured it, made sure that it was pest free, and made sure that it succeeded. And now, we have not just a tree, but a whole forest. And so that's what today's really about, celebrating that. And I continue to be humbled by the people around me in this effort. And again, I'm just very delighted that we can now convene, although remotely, 10 years later, and celebrate the successes. So again, I want to thank everyone for including me today, and I look forward to hearing from others. Thank you all.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. I don't know what I pushed. I hid my view by accident, but back. I want to thank both Supervisor Phil Serna and Chet for their just wonderful opening remarks. But I actually want to open it up to the panel. We have some questions already kind of geared towards what both Chet and Phil felt about kind of reading their portraitures, reading their parts, but want to open it up to the entire panel to say, hey, our session goals are really about informing and engaging and activating our community here. But what questions might we really have for Phil Serna in 2011? What could he do? What would he have done different? What would he have continued to do? And Chet, you too. I always think that there's not many Black CEOs that are running small but moderate foundations, as you always tell me. And you had to take not only a stand with inside of our community, the Black community, the political community, and then ultimately with your leadership at the Sierra Health Foundation and your executive board. And what were some of the things that were challenging, and what are some of the things that you were really resolute about? So I'll open to that and see if any of our other panelists have questions, and then we'll open it up.
Do you want to go first, Phil? There's questions to us both, or I could go first as well.
Why don't you go ahead, Chet?
Well, I talked about earlier about people being the secret sauce and compelling and inspiring us to do better. And many of the folks around this question of Black child death are on this call. And if you know of the work of Miss Jackie and Pastor Banks and Greg King and Simmons, and the folks that I mentioned earlier, and again, apologize if I've forgotten any names. It's easy to get to that place where the struggle to move forward or advance an effort that can be fraught with all sorts of challenges, gets easier. And you all know that I'm fond of quoting my mother, who left me a lot of wisdom. And I tell you, she left it to me at a time when I didn't even see all the wisdom in some of the simple things she would say to me. But she always said, things can be hard, son, but just make them worth it. And this can be hard work. But the fact that there are children walking around today that may not have been walking around otherwise makes it all worth it. All the challenges, all the struggles, all the hard conversations, all that is worth it. And to stay with the metaphor I talked about earlier about love and healing and people, you can count a lot of things in life. You can go into the kitchen and you can count how many this you cook or pieces of chicken you fry or anything else. But the thing that's hard to count is the love of the folks in the kitchen who prepared the food. And when we talk about going to grandmama's kitchen, it isn't just how much came out of it. It's the love in that environment and how it influenced our entire experience. BCLC brings all that together. It's hard, but it's worth it. The experience is about love and healing. And it is made possible as much by who we are as what we do. Phil talked about his initial inquiry. They say the most powerful form of speech is a question. And Phil asked the right question when presented with that data. And I'll summarize it by saying, why is this? And what have you done? Those two simple inquiries, lines of thought, is what really advanced us. And I think all of us who sat in that room at that time had to then think about why that was and what have we done, even at an individual level, but also respect to the institutions we have the privilege of leading. Those things are very, very important. Match that with the extraordinary capability that communities possess. Even communities people sometimes think don't have a lot of wealth or richness. Wrong, because these communities, those who have been afflicted by the very issues we sought to change, are the ones who have changed it in ways that have never been seen before any place we know of in this country. So for me, the battle, clearly worth it. And whatever struggles that we would encounter in the future, well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm fired up and ready to take them on. Just bring them on. Sorry for going on, but.
Okay, that was good. Serna, you want to be able to follow up or again, with any other questions from the panelists?
Should I go ahead and?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I've been thinking a lot lately about BCLC. As Kendra and Chet know, we had our annual budget hearings last week, and certainly it was a subject that came up in the context of resource allocation to sustain the effort, and it was a good reminder to all of us on the board and to our staff and to the public about investment and why do we value what we do and how are those values reflected in our budget. And for me, the things that I said to remind everyone, especially some of my colleagues, not that they don't value BCLC, but I wanted to issue a friendly reminder that, there aren't many initiatives that the county's involved with where we measure success with lives saved, actual lives saved, and disparities reduced. And this is one of them. This is one of them. And as Chet mentioned, this has now become an initiative, a model to address death disparities that is migrating across the state, across the country, and for good reason. And that's because of that fact that we're measuring success and lives saved. When the Blue Ribbon Commission started, not too long after I asked that initial question, we went to the 7 neighborhoods where the disparity is most pronounced. I always refer to it as kind of, we took it on the road. So we went to places like Meadowview and El Paso Heights and Oak Park. And there was kind of a moment in each of those meetings when I knew at that moment this was going to be a success. And it might sound strange, but it was the moment in each of those meetings when you had a mother, a father, a grandmother, a faith leader break down and weep, because that was the first time that they were seeing the data on the disparity of deaths in the African-American childhood population. And it's something I think that resided in the back of our minds, but when you see it in an inch-thick report and you understand the circumstance around every single child death that had occurred over the course of 20 years in Sacramento County, and then the punchline is, again, the answer, which was vague, that nothing had been done to deliberately address it, that's when the tears start coming. And so when that happened, when I took inventory of people's emotions in those rooms, in those community centers, in those neighborhoods, I knew that this was going to be owned by the community. The success was going to be enjoyed by the community, that this initiative cannot be associated with a single politician, because we're fleeting, we come and go, and it was way too much. There's way too much importance for that to be the case. And so when I started really sensing that the community was owning this, that was the day that I knew that this was going to be a resounding success. It doesn't mean that it wasn't going to be without a lot of hard work. And certainly people like Kendra know that it came with a lot of hard work. But this is the community's initiative. It's not the counties, it's not Sierra Health Foundation, it's the communities. And so for me, I want to look back at some point at my career on the board, say that I played some small role. But again, it was really making sure that the ownership of this resides with the people I had the honor of representing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any questions before we move on from the panelists? Okay, I know we're going to have QA for the entire audience, the participants at the end, but I think it's really great if we move now into kind of the bulk of the report, the kind of nuts and bolts of the report. And I want to be able to read this for the team. This report is the result of a 2-year evaluation conducted by researchers at UC Davis and Sacramento State. You're going to hear from them very shortly. It provides evidence of the effectiveness of the strategies in building sustainable systems of support to protect children from preventable deaths. The evaluation findings are backed up by changes in Black child death. The most recent data shows that the rate of African-American child death has decreased from 2014 to 2018 by over 30%. And so just really proud of, being able to put that out there as we start to think about how did this report get built, who are the researchers, and I want to give it to our evaluation director, who has always been our North Star, but Dr. Leslie Cooksy, to open it up and then to introduce the research team that she was leading.
All right, thank you, Kendra, and thanks to the poets and the leaders, Kendra, Phil, Chet, who have opened us up here. I want to say it's a real honor to be on the program with these participants, and an honor to support the Black Child Legacy Campaign in my role. I am the evaluation director for Sierra Health Foundation and the Center. I lead evaluation activities for several programs. And one part of that process is selecting people who will be the external evaluators of our programs. So today I have the pleasure of introducing the team that was responsible for evaluating the Black Child Legacy Campaign and the strategies that have guided it from the beginning. But first, Kendra and the planning team asked if I would select a favorite quote or statement from the report. And when I was asked that, I knew I wanted to find something that included the word love. What I've learned is that love, the strength of love, the necessity of love, is the foundation of the Black Child Legacy Campaign. You've already heard Chet talk about it, Pastor Banks, everybody who has spoken of the love at the center of this program. I have never been part of a program where the people in their actions speak so eloquently of love. One of the strengths of this report is that through the profiles especially, but throughout, the centrality of love in the work is clear. I hope the report will advance the legacy of love for Black children and their families and their communities. Here is my quote. This is from Crystal Harding. She was the community incubator lead at Foothill Farms, North Highlands. She said, "We meet the families as they are, connecting with them, no judgment, just open arms and open hearts, and with genuine love and empathy, so that they know they have someone, a team and network that's there to support them through it all." Thank you, Crystal, for that. Now, to the evaluation team. The team was selected through a public process, request for proposals. We had several applicants, and it was a really arduous process to select the final team. We are so happy with who we selected, though. The full team, I'm gonna give the names and titles now. I want to say a little bit more about why we selected them in a minute. First, it's Doctors Maisha and Torry Winn, Faculty Director and Executive Director, respectively, of the Transformative Justice and Education Center at UC Davis. We have Dr. Torry here with us today. Dr. Vajra Watson, Faculty Director of the Doctorate in Educational Leadership at Sac State. Looking forward to hearing from you, Dr. Vajra. There were also two other authors, participants, Dr. Domini, who did historical analyses of each neighborhood, which I think is a real critical part of this report, to really understand the foundation of the discrimination that then revealed itself in the data that Phil reacted to. And then Vanessa Segunda, graduate student who participated in the data collection and the analysis. This powerful team was selected for a number of reasons. I would say primarily their humanist perspective on evaluation. It isn't measurement, assessment, it's really about understanding and celebrating. And they brought that to this report in a big, big way. It also helped a lot that they have longstanding relationships with the Black Child Legacy Campaign communities. And again, that commitment to including a historical analysis. So we remember the programs take place in a context, and in this case, a context of longstanding institutionalized racism. And finally, not least, their experience and credentials. These are some fine researchers. We were very happy to place our trust in them. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Vajra and Torry.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. So honored to be in community with all of you. And also just to have this incredible opportunity to kind of lock arms with Maisha and Torry Winn and be able to tell some piece of the Black Child Legacy Campaign story. The work is ongoing. Right? The work is still in many ways just getting started, and no one report is going to do all the work. What we were able to do was look at a slice of it, a piece of the puzzle in some of the kind of original kind of architects and the incredible legacy work that's been happening in Sacramento long before the title of a Black Child Legacy campaign came along. But the Black Child Legacy campaign really gave it a home, an umbrella, a way to pull more, more community-based organizations together, be that glue to the partnerships. So it's been incredible. I'm going to pass the mic, if it's okay, to you, Brother Torry, and then we'll kind of just go back and forth in this conversation. I think I'll share my quote after you share your quote, and we'll make it happen.
Thank you, Vajra. I just want to say it's an honor to be here, to be part of this moment. This is a moment that the city of Sacramento, the county, the region, the state, and the country can look at and have a roadmap to what is a legacy is all about. As I sit and as I prepare for this, and I'm looking at the names on this panel, I remember when I was in my mid-20s and I met Chet Hewitt. He was a mentor when I was trying to figure out my next steps in life. And it was the first time I really considered research. And we used to sit at Chevy's right there by the river. And I used to just soak up all this knowledge. And then for my wife, Maisha, who's not here, she's a Sacramento native, homegrown, Oak Park, Curtis Park. So she knows Phil Serna, went to school with Phil's sister, Lisa, at UC Davis, and also Pastor Alice Banks, Maisha's dad, Jim Fisher. They go way back. And so just to be part of this legacy means so much to me. I'm not from Sacramento, but I do have roots. I've volunteered, I worked in Sacramento for a number of years, and to return back to Sacramento with my wife means so much, to use and to leverage our resources, our knowledge, and our skills to make sure that we don't look to other cities to take our skill sets to improve, but we start first. And so thank you, Dr. Vajra Watson, for partnering with us, telling us this is something we should do as a team. The quote I want to share is from a person we interviewed. And as a researcher, sometimes we will release the names and sometimes we don't. And the quote is, "I knew very little of the Black Child Legacy campaign prior to and at the time of. The name really had no significance to me because I heard the title Black put on a lot of different organizations. Yet, I was more optimistic." Part of the transformative framework, there's 5 pedagogical stances. The first is history matters. The second is race matters. The third is justice matters. The fourth is language matters. And the fifth is future matters. And this particular quote reminds me of language matters. Because what we do know is language can be dehumanizing, language can be deficit driven, language can be uplifting, language can be nation building, language can be transformative, and language can give life. Language matters. And that's why the name Black Child Legacy campaign speaks volumes about the people, the communities, the organizations involved. And so when I think about the Black Child Legacy and I think about the name, the title Black, there's probably about 4 or 5 titles or organizations that have Black that means a lot to me. Black Power, as we know, 1960s, was really forceful. Black is Beautiful. Black Lives Matter, which is more recent. A Black Star Line or Black Star, the rap group, or Marcus Garvey. Another name or term using Black Girl Magic is very powerful, and Black Joy. But the name Black Child Legacy, when Vajra and Maisha and I, when we heard the name Black Child Legacy and we got that request for proposals, just the name alone said we need to work and submit a proposal to be able to conduct this research or this evaluation, because the individuals involved were intentional about the name. And so when we think about legacy, what legacy are you leaving behind? How do we impact the future generations? And I never forget this poet, this great writer. He's from New York, where Chet is from, and he goes by the name of Jay-Z. And in his audio version of his book 444, he has a song called Legacy, and it begins with his daughter Blue Ivy, and she says, "Daddy, what is a will? And you can barely hear at the end, Daddy, what is a will? And the Black Child Legacy campaign is a will for future generations. It is a will that will impact the future. And so it's just an honor to be on this Zoom call today and to be able to discuss the evaluation. And so I just want to say thank you. And I'll pass it back to you, Vajra, and I look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I look forward to it as well. So the quote that I want to lift up from the report, building on what what Torry was just saying around language matters. So terminology matters, and names often reflect our values, perceptions, and ambitions. While racism is problematic, shameful, inhumane, gruesome, and challenging, Blackness is not. Blackness is legacy, and this sentiment is simultaneously a compass, definition, and destination. And what moved me about that is I think that there were so many moments in conversation with community where it was reinforced that the reason that the Black Child Legacy campaign was able to have the results that it had is that there can be no Black power without Black leadership. And that was a kind of fundamental cornerstone that I also think makes the Black Child Legacy campaign unique. That's not to say that other, ethnicities can participate, but that it's participation through service to and with Black leadership, and keeping that at the centralizing force in the work. Dr. Winn brought up the kind of pedagogical stances, which was the part of the theoretical framework that we used. So Maisha and Torry talk about history matters. Well, so if we're going to do a report and do it justice, we have to know the history of Sacramento. And a piece of the report that goes into issues of gentrification and redlining, that is a powerful community teaching tool. I felt like I had done all this work in Del Paso Heights, and I relearned Del Paso Heights through a much better understanding of the history of DPH, right? And so, yes, history matters. So we use these stances to inform the ways we studied it. And then the other piece that's important for folks to understand is this methodology, the way we collected data comes from portraiture. And portraiture is a very particular qualitative kind of style of doing research from Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, who is now she's a retired professor from Harvard University, but African-American woman, became a professor at 24 years old, was at Harvard from 24 to basically 74. And that's important too, right? So we didn't want to just use any methods to do this. We actually wanted to also, again, centralizing Black power, not just in who we talk to, but even in the research tools that we were using to document these stories. So I say all of that just that I hope and I pray, and we did this in service, that this is a small tool that can be used, an educational tool, and can inform other regions and other states that are committed to this, and that we have elevated the incredible Black people power of Sacramento, California, that will be known for generations. So again, an honor to help tell a small part of this story alongside all of you.
Vajra, thank you so much for that. And you mentioned Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot and working with her. I just want you all to know what that means for Vajra to be able to work with a pillar She's the Aretha Franklin. She's the Michael Jordan. She's everything. And for Vajra to be able to bring that methodology to Sacramento and to combine it with the 5 pedagogical stances, we felt so good because it's about the lived experiences of the people. It's about their stories. And as Phil and Chet mentioned earlier, we know the numbers, but how do we get to the numbers? What are the stories? Tell us what it looks like, what it smells like. What are people saying? We need to know the process. And so the two went hand in hand, and it was just powerful to be able to retell the stories and the histories of these individuals and try to get it right. We went back and forth with different folks to make sure that their quotes is what they said, and just to make sure that it's accurate. Because a lot of times as researchers and as evaluators, if you don't know the community, guess what? You have no passion and concern for the community, and you dehumanize what they say. And so as people who have connections and have understanding of Sacramento, we wanted to try to tell the story right. So we have some recommendations and lessons for other counties and cities. And this is the will, this is what I was saying earlier. This is the for other cities who want to write a will. And the first is, there's no Band-Aid approach. You got to get to the root causes of what's happening. You have to be consistent and courageous. You have to be bold. The folks who have led this effort from day one, and even before the term Black Child Legacy campaign, and even before the first group convened, this work was taking place in these 7 neighborhoods. And so these folks were bold, they were audacious, they were strategic. And so this work has to be transformative. It has to get to the root causes of the political, economic, social issues that impact our community. So that's the first. The second recommendation is examine the historical context of these communities. And Vajra mentioned this earlier about redlining. Each of these 7 neighborhoods have their own histories. And because of Dr. Damani Fisher was able to examine, he went to the historical archives in downtown Sacramento at the library, and he looked at research what was happening to these communities over time. And I will encourage you all to look at the neighborhood you serve and the neighborhood you are affiliated or live in, and learn about your history, because history matters. When we look at Oak Park or North Highlands, there's a history behind it. Redlining, the military base closing down. I was learning about Del Paso Heights, how there's a lot of Black folks from Alabama, and there's a reason a lot of folks come from Mobile, Alabama. History matters. And so the historical context. The next recommendation is the strategy and action must be inclusive, equitable, and anti-racist. This is important. This is where language matters. This is where justice matters. This is where race matters. When folks, we always hear the word collective impact. I remember that was very popular in the early 2000s up into 2010. It has to be community driven, and the policies have to reflect the people in those communities, the leaders, if it's the faith community, if it's school leaders, if it's leaders of nonprofits, if it's parents, mothers, however we term these individuals. We have to understand that as we strategize and as we put together a plan, it has to be inclusive, it has to be equitable. The last one is, Chet talked about the sauce, the people are the sauce. And I don't know if you saw High on the Hog, which is a great documentary on Netflix, and especially because Juneteenth is here, I will encourage you to watch High on the Hog. But as we are cooking this gumbo, and we know the people are the sauce, and we know the ingredients cost, we have to be mindful that if we are trying to serve just a family of 7, or if you're trying to serve your entire family and your cousins and aunties all come over, there's cost to that. And so for every okra, shrimp, if you're vegan, you can have gumbo without meat, it costs money. And so for cities and counties who want to do what the Black Child Legacy Campaign have done and all the leaders, you have to put money behind your words and your action. And it has to be sustainable. These are years and years and years of issues in the making. If you look at the history, it costs money to repair the harm. There's harm that has been done. So it takes money. So we can't say $1 million here, and we need to start thinking big money. Some people are talking about tickets. We need to think about tables. Instead of buying one ticket to the event, we need to purchase the entire table. So those are our recommendations. This is the will for other cities. It's been done in Sacramento. This is the future. And so, Vajra, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but I just want to say that, this after 2 years of this evaluation, which is a little longer, it's been great to meet new people and to learn about all these cities, and now to have recommendations. And these recommendations are from the people. We are just writing these recommendations based on all the interviews, the data, but these are all the recommendations from the people. This is what we heard.
Thank you, Torry. I think it's great just to open it up. So maybe back to Kendra or others.
Yes, I want to make sure that, Leslie, did you want to have any other questions for kind of the methodology, the recommendations before we get into my story and Miss Jackie's story?
No, I think Vajra and Torry have described the framing, the methodology, and the rationale for the methodology, especially, really clearly. I am looking forward to questions from the attendees later on, but definitely don't want to get in the way of Miss Jackie.
Here we go, Miss Jackie. Oh, my computer, sorry, y'all. Miss Jackie, you are the ultimate mother of Sacramento, Black Sacramento specifically. And it's a title that I hope you wear as proudly as we call it to you. But wanting to know about your story, what you thought about the portraiture. You were interviewed by Dr. Vajra Watson, but really what has Black Child Legacy been to the community, to you? And what do you think is our continued legacy in this work? That's a lot, huh?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Banks, for opening up with such a uplifting prayer. Poets, Chet and Phil, thank you both for your words, your beautiful words around this campaign. This campaign means a lot to me. I'm going to first go into telling you which quote I chose. The quote I chose from the report, which is a beautiful, beautiful report. And it might have been a quote I made. It sounds just like me. I'm not really sure. There's no name on it. It says, I'm always at the top of my agenda to ensure Black children know their greatness through the past, but for others to know our greatness too, because people can't see the greatness in you unless you know your history. And Dr. Winn just talked about that history and these rich communities, and our kids need to know this history, just like we know this history, because history is important in so many ways in assisting Black children in realizing their greatness. But through this rich history, we also must educate others that reside in these communities with us about our history. So it's really, really important that our kids know it, but everyone should know it. And so, Kendra, I'll go into what I felt very strongly. I was, this Dr. Watson, this report and how you captured me, you captured really the true essence in a very holistic and spiritual way about me. And I had never seen it written in words like that before. And I'm kind of emotional about it because after reading it, it makes me feel some kind of way. It makes me feel kind of emotional. And as a community advocate, a leader in this community, a lover of Black people, because I love my people, particularly Black children, and a matriarch, and someone who has that has a vision about where we should go and what we should do, and a mother bear of all God's children. I'm definitely a mother bear of all God's children that live in this community. I just want to thank you for that, because you really captured everything about my journey and what I do, and why I did it. And I wouldn't be able to speak and be part of this whole campaign if I didn't pay homage to folks who mentored me into these spaces, like my mentor, Mr. Wendell Eccles out in Del Paso Heights, who mentored many in that community, who had a 6th grade education, who was a custodian at Grant High School, who mentored all of us through trials and tribulations as young people, but gave us the space and the courage and a platform to be in spaces where I am today. And I he's an ancestor now, and I have to pay homage to him because he did a lot of great things for me.
Miss Jackie.
And you have some other questions, Kendra? Sorry.
Well, I'll open it up to the panelists, but maybe I can go over my story really quickly, and then we can just open it up to everyone. How about that?
Okay.
So I too am in this report, and really, really, really want to thank Vanessa, who now just got her doctorate. But when she did the interview, it was one day before we had the COVID lockdown. I think it says on March 19th. It's the day before my birthday. And there was a lot that was going on. But what she was able to capture the day before we went on over a year lockdown has been really, truly remarkable. One of the things that I love about what she's able to say is, I am named after a hurricane. And Vajra always kids with me about it. But when you really are named after a hurricane and somebody writes about it and shows you the hurricane in 1978 that you're named after, and what your namesake and what that means when you think about leadership and what you bring, it is both like wow and inspiring. And so I'm really, really excited about just the personal pieces that she was able to bring out. The other thing that she was able to bring out and focus in my leadership journey is really my love for Black mothers. It's not every day that someone gets to say they wake up and think about a way to make the world a better place for Black mothers. And this is what this particular role and position that I have at Sierra Health Foundation has truly meant to me. Many of you know I came to this position, I always say 10 months pregnant. I was so pregnant when I got this job, and we were all at the foundation yesterday, and Chet was like, wow, my daughter, her name is Simone. He's like, wow, Simone's so big. And I want to tell Chet, yes, she's 7 years old. This is what 7 years of growing up and progress looks like. Just thank you to the community for continuing to love me, to want to be consistent about and very unapologetic about our work with Black mothers, and to build support and strategies and efficacy around being bold and unapologetic for focusing on Black mothers, their children, and their families. And so I'm really proud of this. You'll also see there's a clip from my great aunt, who was a senator in Kentucky, the first African-American senator and woman in Kentucky. And I've gleaned a lot from her over the years, and she passed away a couple of years ago, but there's also a picture of my great aunt Georgia in there, and also a namesake and someone who kept making sure that social justice and values are deep inside of my DNA and deep inside of what I bring to this work. And so just really proud that Vanessa was able to capture that all like as everything was shutting down, and really proud of that. And yeah, this is a story that will live on, and really proud to share it with my grandparents and my family and our community. So I'll stop there and open it up to questions. Or anything of the other panelists would like to say. Okay, maybe I will run the
I think for Kendra, this is Miss Jackie. I think that the other thing that the piece that Dr. Watson did on me really captured what we kind of talked about from other panelists in regards to the foundational work that a lot of organizations were already doing in the community before the Black Child Legacy Campaign. And I had already been working in the community for over 20 years, working with Black children, working in one of the most horrendous communities here in Sacramento, where Black children were dying every day from gun violence and all of the other social ills that affected Black folks way back then. And the struggle was real, but I now, and talking about that through what Dr. Watson captured in that piece was all of the real day-to-day things that was happening in the Black community on the ground. And I think that's what this report does. It captures that. That's not in data. These sometimes those things can't be put in a data form, but these are real issues that's happening on the ground in these communities on a daily basis, that all 7 incubators that are part of this campaign do on a regular basis in regards to meeting the needs of Black families and meeting these families where they are in regards to making sure that they get everything that they need to be successful. And so that article, this whole presence of this article was really beautiful for me because it took me back to how we got where we're at. I now have an infrastructure around me with Sierra Health and the county and all these other 6 incubators to really bounce off all of these things, and for us to work a more collaborative and collective way in regards to servicing Black families and Black children. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, Ms. Jackie.
I just wanted to add really quick that this is what research is supposed to do. And we know that research and reports, often, are not in service of community building. And, this is also a call to put pressure, on scholars, that there's other ways to be, in partnership with folks and to kind of use our tools for larger movement building. So research can be relational, research can be game changing, and research can be in service of hope and in service of justice. And this is also to the universities, that often think about scholars as just producing, how do you produce knowledge versus pivoting towards how do you serve social change. And so, this is just a small piece of that, not to say that we achieved it, but to hear feedback from, Ms. Jackie and others that this report has some value. That's our only wish, is that it can add value to the movement that you all are already doing.
And I want to add to that, Vajra, too. I just want to say, as a researcher, the challenge is cultivating relationships with the community that you're trying to evaluate or you're trying to learn from. And from day one, I never forget when I went to North Highlands and Paris and Crystal, they opened up their doors and they were so generous. And I felt like, this is the right place to be. This is the right work. And then when I did some interviews in Oak Park, the same thing happened. And then also at some of the meetings that we attended, we felt like families, but we had to be there as researchers. And so it says a lot about you all, Phil, Chet, and everyone we interviewed, that you opened up, you were vulnerable, you were able to share your stories. And this is what the Black Child Legacy Campaign is all about. This is the heart and soul of Sacramento. And this is why I love Sacramento, is because of the people like you. And as Vajra said, our hope and our desires is that not only is this evaluation a will or a blueprint for other cities, but it's also a way in which universities can research and be in partnership with communities that are doing excellent work. So thank you for just being who you are and sharing your stories and your histories with us.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. You know, for me, extremely proud of the numbers, right? The actual, the deaths. It's hard to talk about death. It's hard to talk about morbidity. It's hard to go back in time and talk about that and get people to focus on that and want to work towards a better legacy and future. But this project has done all of those things. This initiative has, and it's changed the social safety net and the way that Black families are able to access resources and receive the type of love, as Leslie said, and care for them in their moments of crisis. And that's extremely instrumental in neighborhoods that have seen historic injustice for many, many years. And to now have an infrastructure across the county, east to west, north to south, that can show up and be targeted but universal in our approach to serve families has been an incredible, incredible feat. And not just you all being able to put the stories behind that impact, but to really dive into our history, our legacy, and our future, to be able to bring that to bear in a report is really dynamic. And I do hope that the university takes you up on this, you kind of activated, engaged scholarship that really has opportunity to not just change communities, but systems and policy and the way that we're able to think about what evaluation looks like, and to be that thought leader and what it means to bring people together and create a North Star opportunity that everybody understands how we're going to get there and what is measurable and what are the stories that create that narrative. So I do want to thank Dr. Torry and Maisha Winn and Dr. Vajra Watson, but also our Leslie Cooksy, our own evaluation director, for taking us up on trying to figure out what is the best way to tell this story. You know, Supervisor Phil Serna is right. Every year he gets a death review report that tells him who's dying young, who's dying often, and who's dying in preventable ways. And his ability to ask the right question put us on this trajectory to change that dynamic for Black kids and their families. And it has been incredible, absolutely incredible. I want to, I see some questions, but I can't quite see them. So I want to rely on my team to see if there's questions in the panel that we need to address, or questions from the audience that we need to address.
Kendra, this is Phil. I noticed that Leslie posed a question to us. She says, "What is one thing you would recommend other cities to do to replicate the successes of the Black Child Legacy Campaign?" And in terms of my response, it actually goes to what you just mentioned. It's the fact that Sacramento County was armed with a tremendous amount of data. And so because we had the infrastructure around understanding child deaths and the annual child death report you mentioned. And by the way, that is a report that's authored by our Child Protective Services agency, working collaboratively with the district attorney's office, but also some of our nonprofit partners like CAPC and others. And so it's a collaborative effort to put those reports together and then present it to the Board of Supervisors and the public every year. But if a community, whether it be a city, county, or other, some other subdivision of government, if that entity does not have that data, it doesn't mean that you can't embark on a similar journey that we have here in Sacramento County to reduce both real deaths and the disparity. But I think it makes it a little more challenging because you need to understand, at least this is my opinion, you really need to understand the depth and breadth of the challenge in order to methodically address it. And so that is why I've been very interested in legislation that would actually require every county, each of the 58 counties in our state, to do what we do. And there are other counties, but not all counties, but there are other counties in the state that do something similar. But I do believe that if it was required, it was mandatory, that other counties could do something very similar to what we've done with the Black Child Legacy campaign here in Sacramento County. And I think that's probably one of the next steps in terms of how do we expand into other communities, the great work that we know is proven here.
Agreed. Absolutely. Any other comments on Leslie's question? Okay, team, what about other questions? We want to open it up to our panelists and to our audience. Are there any other audience or participatory questions that I can't quite see?
I would just say, I mean, to Leslie's question, this notion of having multiple systems, right? So we definitely elevated a lot of the community work happening, but it's also, I think that there are, there's allies, there's co-conspirators, there's good people everywhere. I remember I actually had my son read Phil Serna's first draft of his portrait. And he was, I don't know, 17, 18, cynical of politics and all of that. I mean, that's not why I paired it. I just said, how is this reading? And he said, I cannot believe there's politicians that are authentic. He had no concept of that level of desire for community change because, he came from a jaded generation that has watched a lot of harm happening in political offices. And so I think also what's really important to other cities thinking about this work is that there are county supervisors that are down, that get it. And there are, cultural brokers, and there is philanthropy, and there, that movement building and the implications of who is responsible for the work is not just on the community-based educator that's already doing the work, is already carrying the weight, is already putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. But everyone, the entire city is implicated. And if the entire city is implicated, then everyone has to be a part of that solution. And I think the Black Child Legacy campaign has shown us that that's not just a theoretical idea, that you guys have really been able to pull systems together in really unique ways and demonstrate to other counties that it is doable and possible and powerful.
I'm curious if Pastor Banks has a perspective as a longtime steering committee member and another mother of the community.
Well, yes, I feel that I am a mother of the community because I have been working with babies for over 50 years. Being the administrator for California Children's Services for many years, I served on that committee. And when I saw Maisha, my mind went back. I knew her when she was a child. Her mother and I were friends, and how her mother used to hold meetings at her house for Black children. And so it's in my heart to do as much as I can, as long as I can, And when I was the administrator for California Children's Service, there were many services that were available that our children didn't know about, but they know about them now. And they knew about them 5 years after I was the administrator there. But working with Black Child Legacy and the reduction of Afro-American child death has been strength for me. As you might know, I was during slavery almost. I was in that area when we couldn't vote. It's yes, I was there. My parents were not able to vote. My father was murdered. So I see all of this stuff that went on then. And when it happens here now, it makes me want to work a little bit harder. When I see protests and things, I don't always join them because of my age, but I always pray for them, because I have learned that in these 90 years that I have lived, that without God, I can do nothing, but with him, I can do it all. And so I feel very proud to be with you this morning, and I will continue to work as long as I can. I'm not done yet. God's not through with me yet. And so I have work to do, and I appreciate your opportunity to allow me to do the work. And I appreciate all of you who were on the line this morning and all of the work you've done. And like I said, the blood, sweat, and tears, you don't see it, but it falls. We have cried many times in this program, and we will continue to cry, continue to pray, continue to work until we have reached the goal that we are setting for ourselves, and that is that we will have everything that God has made for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Banks. Any additional comments? Questions? Concerns? Edits? Okay, y'all. We're going to go ahead. If there's nothing else, and I'm trying to check Monica just to see, wink if there's nothing. It's okay? Okay, good. We're going to go ahead and close out. Again, we want to encourage you to please look up and download the Transformative Justice Report. If you want a physical copy, we have lots of copies in our office. Please email Monica Nelson. She's going to put her email in the chat. And if not, you could always look us up. But if you want a physical copy, you want it mailed to you, we would love to mail it to you. This is a beautiful report. I can't even tell you enough about the pictures and the quotes and the stories, but it also has a lot of history. Serna, I love you because my mother loved your father. And
Yes.
yes. And that's a deep thing, and so there's a lot of legacy in this particular report. And there's a lot of power building that can happen if our community actually knows the history of how they came to be, and that it does not have to stay that way, that we are a powerful community here in Sacramento. We're known for our social justice. We're known for embracing everyone. And this report is really about that. Chet, in closing, before I go out, I just want to make sure I can see my screen, and anybody else want to say any closing words?
No, I just want to thank everyone who was on the call today for sharing honestly and putting their heart out there as well. I also want to underscore and thank our evaluators for doing such a wonderful job kind of capturing the nuances of things. Nuance is really, really important in social justice work. So again, just hold in your heart that the best of BCLC is yet to be achieved. So with all the celebration, and we deserve it, communities deserve it, all our partners deserve it, there's still more work to do.
Absolutely. So we hope that you're able to go out and enjoy Juneteenth. A little plug here, we will all be at William Land Park hot tomorrow. But so excited. This is our first event after a year and a half. Yeah, to be able to really be out at Juneteenth at William Land Park, come see the Black Child Legacy Campaign. Our other booths around Collab and Trauma-Informed Wellness, Kings and Queens Rise, and just come be with community. That is probably the best part of Sacramento is William Lamb Park in the summertime. So we hope we see you there. And in closing, I have one of another poet.
Oh, sister.
Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. However, in my city, it seems like there's an intentional campaign for pain on Black babies. They out here dying in the streets. We trying to advance peace. The youth searching for peace, so some carry peace to maintain peace, but no peace when Black child slain on the concrete. Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. How long the cycle gonna repeat? How long the cycle gonna repeat? How many more funerals to attend for you and me? Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. Why Black children twice as likely to die in my city? From low birth weight to third-party homicide. Just 2 of the several reasons why Black children in the city of trees die. Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. Even if all we have is this poetry, let it be enough to swim through this poverty. Probably there's a youth posted near your block right now, having to make the choice of being broke and going to school or come up the only way they know how. It may seem crazy, but poetry can save lives. And if spoken word can save souls, then why don't more youth know that they can make school that hustle and be like the rose that grows from the concrete? Like Tupac told you and me, every Black child deserves to have a legacy. Even if all we have is this poetry, let it be enough to swim through this poverty. Let it build legacies. Let it help Black children be free. Let it strengthen you and me to help these beautiful children build Black legacies. Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. Even if all we have is this poetry, let it be enough to swim through this poverty. How do you build legacies when freedom isn't free? Take these liquor stores up out our hoods and give us free. Every Black child deserves to have a legacy. Every Black child deserves to have a legacy.
Shout out to Says, y'all. Please go pick up the Transformative Justice Report. Just thank you to the team. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for your leadership and for your love. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you to
Absolutely.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
appreciate you.